Hello and welcome to the Insane Gorillas podcast. This week we're going to be talking about Grave of the Fireflies, 1988 anime from Studio Ghibli or Ghibli. I still don't know.
Ghibli, but you can say it Ghibli too. You can
Yeah,
say it either way.
it's either way. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Also, before we get started, spoiler alert: do not watch this if you've not seen the movie because we will be talking about it and we'll probably spoil some things.
Or everything.
Yeah, everything. So let's get into it, shall we?
All right.
So, for this one, I don't love it, nor do I really hate it. There are some things that I really dislike about it, and the way they basically went through with some things I don't really like. But then with other things I really enjoy it, like the relationship, the bond. You can really tell that the brother and the sister really like each other and stuff. But then I don't like how they kind of, what is it? You said I cry during this, and you kept kind of saying that, yeah, this is going to be really sad. On the contrary, I didn't cry a single tear. I more felt like that they messed up. Because, what is it? The reason I think they messed up on, like, going through with it, like, with the sadness and stuff, is that they tell you that they're dead from the start. Now,
What? All right. Yeah, we're okay. So this is
they
gonna be
do
one
tell
where
you
we
that they're dead from the
definitely
start.
disagree.
And when
No, no,
I
no, no,
feel
no. I know they
emotions,
do.
when I feel emotions, surprise tends to be a big hitter when I'm sad. Like
Right,
surprise
but
mixed with like loss and sadness. But
well,
okay,
it starts off. I mean, I get that. I get that. That's fine. That's the way you feel. I can't really have any issue. But the movie starts off immediately telling you that what's his name? Uh, Seta. It immediately starts off telling you that he's dead or showing you, right? Him dying in the bus in the train like terminal, and it's he's just sitting there, and these people are just treating his corpse like it's nothing, basically. And you see the little thing with candies, the candy jar thing in his hand.
the
Um,
fruit,
so
the
the
fruit snack
fruit
type
drops or
things. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it starts off and it kind of makes you wonder, like what happened, what maybe, I mean, what led to this point. And then throughout the whole movie, you see this relationship kind of blossom between Setsuko and Seita, and you know something bad is going to happen. You don't necessarily know exactly what, and when you do find out what happens, it makes it all the more worse because you kind of know like something happens to cause their death, right? And it could have been something as generic as them getting shot or something like that. But it wasn't. It was something caused by their own decisions, something that they painfully went through together over the course of, weeks or months or whatever. And I think it fits in perfectly with the themes of the movie. Um, it's devastating and how um, I don't know how like raw it is with what happens. It's kind of just there and it happens. But I mean, I'm sure you've probably noticed a lot of the symbolism with like the fireflies, right?
Hmm.
Like so, in my opinion, the kind of the lighting is kind of really everything is like illuminated at the beginning when you're seeing them as ghosts. It's like they're illuminated with red, and it's kind of like that at the end of the movie too. And so it's almost like the whole length of their lives has been the this short life where they, you see them enjoying the little things, you see them, but also suffering because they're unaware of the things that they're inadvertently causing or the things that are being done onto them. So I don't think personally that knowing that they die makes it any less hurtful, any less painful. In my opinion, it's actually the fact that you know that they die, you know that something happens, and you get to see that process roll out is what makes it so much more impactful. So I think, and obviously that whole thing with Setsuko dying is like the climax of the movie, or like the low point when it comes to dramatic tension. You know what I mean? Or I guess the high point. I don't know. It's just the point. It's the big emotional moment. And it's imbued with all these tiny details. Like when she dies, for me at least, it wasn't actually her death that made me start to tear up and cry. It was her the scene where it's reminiscing. It shows her like enjoying these things as a kid. You know what I mean? She's enjoying all these little things, playing with mud pies, swinging on a swing. You know what I mean? And it's such a twofold morally like gray situation, because you have this little girl who's um she's enjoying all these things that are, she's enjoying the mud pie, she's enjoying on the wooden swing and playing with these little pond creatures and everything. But when you really look at it, what she's doing is this is a homeless little girl who was pushed out of her home because of war in Japan, and she's trying to struggle to survive with her brother, and it's kind of portraying all these things in through it's kind of highlighting, I guess, the way that children see things is so innocent and um, you know so beautiful. It's such a beautiful way that they look at things, and just like the fireflies, they shine the brightest for the shortest amount of time. So it's a symbol not only for how childhood is short and sweet, and you'll never really know how much you miss it till it's gone. It's also kind of a, a symbol of death as well. So, and on top of that, you have the when Setsuko dies, and it starts showing all these past reflections of her doing all this stuff. You have the Americans, like the upper posh Americans, moving in to the nearby area, and that's when the music starts playing. You know what I mean? It's almost like a symbol of, this is the effect of, this is the end result. This is who gets hurt, in war. This is, you know what I mean? It's always the little person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that all those things combining together for me made a cascade of emotions, like an inexplicably sad, but also like like contemplative, like thing where it just makes me kind of be like, yeah, this is real. You know what I mean? Like, not real in the sense that it's like it makes you feel a very human emotion. So I don't know. That's just my take on it, but I could
Well,
see it.
I see where you're coming from. It's just now I felt sadness when it like went back and she's playing on the swings and like being a kid and everything and kind of like blind to what's actually happening, and she's still somewhat of a victim to the war. She's
Mm-hmm.
not knowing what's going on really, but she's still a victim to it. Now, that's the only part where I almost like started to cry. But then
Right.
I didn't feel sadness because I don't think I knew the characters that well. I don't think I
Mm.
felt like really like I didn't really feel a connection to the characters.
Hmm.
Now, during this week I've also watched Assassination Classroom, and they really do well in that to like really make you feel a connection to them, because we're students and that's we're coming from where they are, sort of, where we got to fill out tests and midterms and stuff, and we're like ranked on them and stuff. So I feel a connection to those. When I feel a connection, I can feel sadness for a character. Now for
Mm-hmm.
Setsuko, I didn't really feel a connection with the character, especially at the beginning when, is it Setsuko? Seida's the boy.
Setsuko. Yeah, Seida's the boy. Setsuko's the
Yeah,
girl.
Setsuko. I said that right. I didn't really feel a connection to Setsuko. Now,
Hmm.
I really do like the animation style and stuff because I've said that before. Studio Ghibli does really, they are really good at making like a good anime. It's just I didn't feel a connection with these characters as much as I have with other Studio Ghibli properties. So,
Hmm. Well, um, well, I guess I'm sorry that you didn't feel a connection, but I do want to say that I feel the opposite way. I think the behaviors and mannerisms of these characters are actually quite strong. It's just they're more subtle. You know what I mean? I've never seen Assassination Classroom like all the way, so I can't really vouch for that. But um, I think that the little mannerisms you see, the details and the gravitation of these characters comes from the little things. You know what I mean? And that is what really pulls me into them. Like you can tell that Seta acts with a lot of bravado because his he's trying to imitate his father who's off fighting in the war. You know what I mean? That little detail is never blatantly told to you by him. It's shown through his actions, through his through his wanting to make decisions for himself and his sister on his own, that type of thing, for his ideas about pride and never going back to his aunt, that kind of thing. And similarly with Setsuko, it's shown through, well, as her being a child, right? Most of her, I guess, traits, her personality traits, are honestly kind of attributed to her being a kid. But you can see it in a lot of scenes where she has almost no notion of things going wrong or bad, or you know what I mean? Like she always sees the bright side of things, and or she always fails to consider something bad is happening. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
it's kind
for
of just
me,
that's the way
that
children are.
well, yeah, I mean, well, everyone's different, obviously, but in a general sense, yes. So that kind of thing actually made me gravitate towards him a lot, and it actually kind of caused a conflict with Seta in me internally because I think Seta could have done a lot of things that would have been better for him and his sister ultimately, but his own bravado and attempts to kind of imitate his father prevented him from kind of making objective decisions. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like those decisions that he made are a consequence of wartime Japan. I mean, you know what I mean? Like these are all things that Seta has been taught his entire life. These things of no retreat, no, just basically just that bravado, that unwillingness to surrender, and that unwillingness to surrender is ultimately kind of what causes their death.
Yeah.
But it's also not only about Setsuko. I think a big misunderstanding about this movie is to assume that it's also about Setsuko, the tragedy of Setsuko. But the the another big thing is the tragedy of Seta. This is a kid who's been raised on propaganda and with this, like I said, this bravado, this higher than whatever like mentality. And in that moment when they're inside the cave, right, when the fireflies are all flying around, which is this is one of my favorite scenes. But in that scene with the fireflies are all flying around and they're talking to each other, you really see how both of them are kind of subject to this terrible thing. I mean, earlier in the movie you see it literally, right, with the fire bombs and all that shit. But in the cave, you kind of see them reflect on it. You know what I mean? It's just a somber moment when you kind of see how both of them are really really victims of this type of thing. And but you also see their innocence shine through with like the like so they put all the fireflies in there, right? They catch the fireflies because they think it would look pretty or whatever, and they let them go inside the cave, and it's beautiful, right? You have all the fireflies flying around. And it's like, wow, look at this is moving lights. And in the morning when they wake up, the fireflies are dead because they were stuck inside. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like such a beautiful metaphor for like the death of innocence and the loss of childhood. So I don't know. I think because of that, I think artistically this movie holds up so well. Like this movie always like I think there's a trend in anime for well obviously Studio Ghibli is kind of its own thing, right? I mean, yes, it's anime. Absolutely. But it's not like your traditional. I mean, it's not like what most people think of when it comes to anime. You know what I mean? But Studio Ghibli, they're so good at, for example, like in this movie, showing you things instead of telling you things. Like there's a trend in anime to just tell you everything, to tell you exposition, to tell you what the character's thinking. And this movie never does that, really. It just kind of shows you things, and it feels more real. It feels more genuine. I could see how some people would think it's boring. I've heard that before. I've heard people say it's boring, but I don't really see it that way because if you look at it through the lens of I don't know, if you look at it through the lens of kind of a a war, like the situation, I guess that it wants you to. I don't know. The details just shine through, I think.
Well, don't. I wasn't really bored with this movie. I just didn't feel a connection to the character, so I didn't feel sadness when you probably would have felt sadness. But
Mhm.
you were. Well, I'm trying to think. Mm. Well, I do see Seta does Seta or Seta
Seita, Seita,
Seta
Seita.
does have that
Yeah.
bravado, and it does show it like through like him imagining him as like him him imagining himself as like a warrior throughout it, not wanting to like retreat.
Hmm.
uh so like whenever he can, he'll like do stuff on his own. So like when he gets all that money from his dad and finds out, oh, we have this money now, I can take care of, we can take care of ourselves, and then they end
Right.
up blowing it all and like losing it all. And then that kind of just puts them in the deep end of, oh, how are we supposed to fend for ourselves now? And even
Right.
at that point,
Right.
he's like, okay, so now I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna give in and just go back to my aunt or anything. I'm gonna go steal stuff and try to make money that way. And then
Hmm.
that ends up kind of ruining them. So
Yeah.
I can see that he's one of the better developed characters. You don't see too much of Setsuko throughout the,
Right.
except like little glimpses, and then she's there, and then she's kind of gone. But you know that she's supposed to be the innocent one in the case. But
Right.
I
Well,
just
Seita drives the narrative for sure.
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? He's the kind of driving force between, like, for all the decisions and all the, you know, the
Mhm.
shit. But like I said, it's a twofold type thing. Like the tragedy of it isn't just, you know, Setsuko. Which don't get me wrong, it for me it was hard to watch Setsuko die, but I think looking back, it's also I don't know. It's so I guess maybe this will help a little bit better to understand my mindset of it. It's like it's not so much the characters themselves that make it sad for me, but the situation and the general idea of the loss of innocence and the consequences of war on children and innocent people, and you know what I mean. It's that general idea that's kind of channeled through their death that uh, sorry, that really makes me sad. But it's also kind of seeing say to give up, kind of lose hope at the end after Setsuko dies is also really hard. That also made me cry quite a bit because it pulls it back around to the beginning. At the beginning, you're like, at the beginning, and this is also what I guess I was trying to say to your first point is, at the beginning, it's like, oh, it's just a dead kid, right? That's what you're kind of thinking, right? You're kind of thinking, oh, it's a dead kid. That's kind of sad, right? But by the end of the movie, because you have context, you're thinking, oh my god, this is a dead kid. Like, this is so fucked up, you know? So it really develops that kind of idea like very well. I think it start like when you start off, you have no emotional connection, or you have no really any context to what happens. Then you see the little glimpses of the war, and you see everything that happens between Setsuko and Seita, and you think this probably happened something something similar probably happened to a lot of kids, or you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So it's I think it's really the idea that's the most terrifying um, in this movie. So I don't know.
Yeah. What I what I think would have made it more impactful to me also is if we took that beginning and kind of just repeated it at the end, showing
Well, they do.
they don't no they don't show you is it they don't show you Seta dying again. They don't.
Uh, they show you his ghost, I think,
Yeah,
and they
but
show the guy. Don't they show the guy coming back? or don't they show the fucking police officer coming up to them? I'm pretty sure they do.
I don't think
I mean, they don't
so.
show the exact same. They don't show the exact same scene, but they do show the same situation happening again, I believe, because they pass by. You know, they go on the train and they pass by, and they're kind of reminiscing on
Well,
their
it
life.
shows him, yeah, kind of laying on the ground. Well,
Yeah,
I
I mean, it's
think,
not exactly the same, but it's like the same situation. You know, what I mean, it's the same. It's like the same. Um, uh, yeah, the same situation. So I don't know,
yeah,
but the music also I think is something that really impacted my emotional experience. You know what I mean? Because music is like a very emotional thing for most people. You know, it draws out like emotions because your mind is like reading patterns and anticipating patterns that are associated with certain emotions. So, like the main orchestral piece of this song um, is like really emotional for me. Like I can listen to that song at any time, and I can, it'll make me tear up. It'll make me kind of think about that whole situation. So I don't know. I think this is a great. Um, I think this is a really great anti-war movie. I think it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite.
yeah. I really like it as like an anti-war movie, but I just didn't feel as much of a connection with the characters as I think they intended you to do or to feel.
Mm.
But overall, I think it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it, and I
Mm.
enjoy most Studio Ghibli type movies, even the one,
Right.
the Marrying the Witch's Flower, even though it wasn't
Well,
technically
it's
Studio
no,
Ghibli.
it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, I even enjoyed that one, but it's not really
Hmm.
Studio Ghibli. It's connected somehow, but
Yeah. Studio Ponok or something like
yeah,
that. But yeah, no, this is one of Ghibli's kind of oddball movies in the sense that it's not it was directed by Isao Takahata, who's the slept on director of Studio Ghibli. You know, so there's like four directors that you kind of have at Studio Ghibli. You have obviously Hayao Miyazaki, who is the big guy, and then you have Isao Takahata, who's he's done Only Yesterday, Grave of the Fireflies, The Tale of Princess Kaguya. He's done My Neighbor, the Yamadas. He's done a lot of Studio Ghibli movies, but his movies are very different from Hayao Miyazaki's. You know what I mean? They're like if you watch a Hayao Miyazaki movie, it's very fantastic and exploring adventure, and everything's colorful and magical and like that. But then Isao Takahata's movies tend to be tragic, and I think almost all of his movies have been about the loss of innocence, the loss of childhood, which is kind of interesting because it's something that pops up in all of his movies. In Grave of the Fireflies, it's with Setsuko and Seita, and with in the Tale of Princess Kaguya, it's about Kaguya kind of becoming a human and then being taken to the moon and kind of looking back and then with Only Yesterday, the whole movie is literally about a woman who is kind of like reminiscing on her childhood, like and kind of yearning for that feeling again. So I don't know. His movies really focus on that, but I
well,
personally think this is his best one.
you were mentioning this is very different from some of the other Studio Ghibli stuff, and I noticed that like right off the bat. Like
Yeah, yeah,
usually in Studio Ghibli, I feel like okay, they're gonna start out happy, and then they might go into the little sad part, and then it might have a happy ending. That's what I usually
right.
get. Usually there's a happy part of the movie. In this one, it's kind of just kind of sad throughout the entire piece. You kind of
Yeah,
just
the whole
feel
thing.
sadness because first their mother dies in the incendiary after an incendiary grenade goes off, and then it's just sadness, 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 and then I think the part that's kind of happy is when Seda, and Setsuko meet in like the afterlife.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only like part you kind of feel joy. At least they're together at the end of all of this.
Right, right. It kind of presents a idea of there being an afterlife, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's kind of crushing that they're gone. It really is. It's not I wouldn't even I mean I get what I agree with you, but I think it's not necessarily a happy feeling, but it's more like damn, I wish
It's
things could
like
have been better.
peace. Like they're
Yeah,
at
yeah, yeah.
peace.
Yeah. I think the original, yeah, the movie is based off of a novel called Grave of the Fireflies, by Akiyuki Nosaka, and I think the author, um, it's only 15 pages long, but I think the author is his sister died, I believe his sister died, and he wrote this book about it, and then it was adapted by Isao Taka. But
Is the book like
yeah,
is the book like a manga, or is it like a regular book?
no, 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 no.
It's like a
It's just a
regular.
short story.
Okay.
It's a short story, but it's I don't know. This movie, you'll never really find any other Studio Ghibli movies like, you know what I mean? And it's kind of in a weird place too because the licensing is also owned by another company. They're not. No, no, it's owned by Ghibli, but it's not included with like their main lineup of stuff
Like
usually. You know what I
Spirited
mean? Because
Away and like Ponyo
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
all
Like
that
the
stuff.
the stuff that Disney has invested in. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because Disney owns the rights to all that shit. Because Ghibli has a cult following, and in America, I mean, and obviously it's like it's huge, but um, you know, the people who I'm talking about, the people who go out of their way to watch every single one and love every single one, like people like me who've seen every single one like fucking 5 times or whatever. You know what I mean? At least 5 times. So um, it's really dark for a Ghibli movie, and I appreciate how different it is. I appreciate how like I don't know. There are other Ghibli movies that have made me cry, like The Tale of Princess Kaguya made me cry. Uh, I think Porco Rosso made me tear up a little bit. That's my favorite one. That's my favorite Studio Ghibli movie. I think it's the most underrated one. Like it's easily in the top three, but no one really counts it in the top three because it's not as popular or majestic as Spirited Away. Um, and even Hayao Miyazaki himself actually doesn't like the movie because he said it wasn't for kids
For
and he
Porco
regretted
Rosso.
making it. Yeah, he said he regretted making it because it wasn't a movie for kids, which I think is kind of funny. But um,
I wouldn't say
yeah, I
this
don't
one's
know.
exactly a movie for kids either, because it does hit on some major
No.
topics. Unlike, well, a lot of Studio Ghibli is pretty lighthearted usually, and then they might have some sort of tragedy or sadness in it. But then usually it
Hmm.
comes to an end where it's sort of happy, everyone's kind of happy, but just this one's just kind
Well,
of hits on some heavy topics.
well, I think most Studio Ghibli movies do. I just think because I don't really think that you can't tackle hard, difficult, complex topics for kids. I think that that's certainly a possible thing. And I actually think this movie kind of does that. Not necessarily for kids, but for families. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's hard to explain. Like, it's not super gory. I mean, there are moments where there's some gorish stuff, but it's not. It's the ideas of this movie that make it really fucking heavy. So, I think that this is a good example, actually, of a movie um, for families that could be used as a vessel for explanation of some things. Um, I was gonna say something about oh yeah, another example, I guess, of like of something that's kind of this by no means do I think this movie is made for kids. I don't think it is. I think it's more meant to be family leaning towards adult oriented. But I think one example of a show actually that is tackles really complex themes, but it's made for kids is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Right? It's like a show that's super goofy and super, whatever, but it has dark, really serious, complex moments that even as a kid I still remember thinking about and taking lessons from. You know what I mean? It's like one of those shows that anyone of any age can watch.
It's almost like Naruto, I think. Well, it starts out really light,
Mm,
and then it sort of gets, as the story goes on, it sort of tackles these more tough topics, and then it's a little darker, right? Naruto.
no, not really. If I'm being completely honest, Avatar has a lot more thematic um, value than Naruto. I think Naruto has plenty of good characters and stuff, but I think it doesn't really hold a candle to Avatar: Last Airbender because they have I don't know, everything they plan out, everything like artistically that movie is so, or not movie, sorry, that series is so amazing. It just they you can tell they had a clear idea from the start and they knew what they were doing, and everything just, I don't know, it just means so much. And I'm saying this as a Naruto fan. I do like Naruto. I've seen the whole series. So I don't know. I'm just saying it's not for me. It's like not really even a comparison. I just think that Avatar gets its points across so much more concisely and so much more clearly that it's like, you know, not like,
I
it's
do
just
agree
not
with
no
that.
comparison.
Naruto's a little sometimes hard to understand. Avatar, I really like both of them though. So I do like
Yeah.
Avatar's animation a lot more than Naruto at some points, just because I
Hmm.
think it's a little more simplistic.
Yeah, well, weekly anime by design gets kind of sloppy, I think, or not by design, sorry, by consequences gets sloppy. So it comes out and it's super fucking, these are episodes being released every single week, like, or were for a long time. So, I don't know. But man, I don't know. But I guess for Grave of the Fireflies, is there anything else that you kind of noted? Like,
Well, I was wondering about the cave, like what was it originally, but I think it was just like a weird like little cave that they built into like a hill. I almost thought of it as a
mhm.
hobbit hole in a couple scenes. They kind of pan down on it as if it's like hobbiton, and like it's
Yeah,
like a hobbit hole. But um,
I could kind of see that.
yeah. Did one thing I didn't know? Did their dad end up dying in the war? Because
I
I
don't.
think because it's like almost all of a sudden money just stops coming in.
Right. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the point is that it's supposed to be vague. I don't know. Maybe they mention it somewhere in the movie. I'm not sure. Um, like I said, I actually didn't get a chance to rewatch the movie before the podcast,
Yeah.
but I've seen it so many times. I remember most of it. I remember the big, major scenes that stick out.
Well, in it when they go to their aunts the first time, they bring all this like really expensive food stuff, and
Hmm.
to show kind of like okay, soldiers have the money and stuff. And then when they after they go through their little spending spree of buying all this rice and all this food and stuff and just eating like kings and queens, they're out of money all of a sudden. And they're
Hmm.
pretty much out of money for the rest of the movie until they start stealing stuff. Like stealing
Right.
goods and stealing food, all that stuff. It almost seems like their dad would probably died, and it actually is a testament to how families are affected even when like they're not in the actual war. They can still be
Right. Right. Right.
affected at home away from the
Even
war.
it's like even it's like almost saying like even an upper class or like relatively wealthy person will still succumb to these things. You know what I mean? And also, like you said, is also about um, how the families are affected, right? That's the father of the home, and at that time, that person was probably the breadwinner. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's yeah, it's definitely really sad. It's like, and like I said, it's on all angles with this movie. It I don't know. I wouldn't actually say that this is a movie that you can watch and then get new details every time. I
No,
think
it's
that
not like
after,
Perfect Blue, but that's
yeah,
I
no,
sort of like the simplicity of this over Perfect Blue. Perfect Blue gets a little confusing and stuff. This one's you really understand it. You don't have
yeah, yeah, it comes off clearly,
yeah. That's one of the problems
and
I had with Perfect Blue compared to
well, see that's, yeah, I understand that, but I do think with Perfect Blue it was like intentional. You know what I mean? They were trying to confuse you, so I kind of don't have a problem with it because they were making things vague in the efforts of fitting in with the themes of the movie. So I personally, but that's neither here nor there.
hmm
But yeah, um, I
I've
don't know. I mean, I would. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've pretty much covered what I've been thinking of, and it's just that I didn't feel a connection with the characters as I did, and I didn't get as sad. But also, I probably expected something sad to happen because you kept hyping this up for like, okay, you're gonna be really sad for this movie, and you're gonna really cry after this movie. I need. Well, what was it? We were planning on doing this like a couple weeks ago, and then you said, okay, you need to watch it like a day before or something, so that like
Hmm.
it's fresh in your head, and so that you can actually
Yeah.
feel sad on the thing. But that might be one reason why I didn't feel so sad, because I was expecting to be sad, and
Yeah.
usually
I can see that.
that surprise affects your emotions.
Yeah. For
So
future reference, I should probably, you know, not. I mean, I do have a couple more. I do have a couple more tearjerker anime movies that I want to try to get your tears of approval on.
well,
But
I did cry during I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, because well, I didn't expect all that to go down, and I didn't
yeah.
expect how everything was gonna happen. And that's one thing about me, is like when I feel emotional, it's usually when I don't expect it. It's even in
Yeah.
horror movies, like when you're expecting something and then something pops out that you didn't expect. That's usually what
Hmm.
kind of gets me. So
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, yeah, I can kind of see how it is like that. I just have a hard time like I don't know. I have a hard time being like if it is really sad for me, I just want to relay that feeling, I guess. But I accidentally kind of
I wouldn't
give
blame it
away.
all on you. I don't know how I would have felt if you hadn't have said that. I might have cried like a couple tears, but not a massive amount. I might have cried a little, but not too much. But I just didn't like
Hmm.
how they off the at the beginning they kind of show you that, well, these characters are gonna die, but you don't know how they die.
Hmm.
So
I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's I
it's
don't
more
know.
so you're crying about the way in which they lived life.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the tragedy of it all, definitely, that
Yeah.
gets you. But I don't know. I mean, do you wanna go on to a
Ratings,
rating?
yeah. Yeah, I don't
All
have
right.
anything else to say. This is a really good movie. You should definitely watch it. Just
Yeah.
it's just tell us what your thoughts and opinions are on it too. So,
Yeah.
do you want to go
Definitely.
first? Because you've seen this movie a couple times, and then I want to see
Mm.
where you rank this movie in comparison to me. I have my
Okay.
idea already. Like I know where I'm gonna rate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll give this movie a 9. This is one of my favorite movies ever of all time. Um, it's probably in my top 5 Studio Ghibli movies. There are a couple that I rank higher than it, but I really love this movie as an anti-war movie, as a tragedy, as and as a piece of art. I really value this movie a lot. So that's really all I can say about it.
Okay, I say for me, I'm not. I've been like trying to get into anime and stuff, and sometimes it doesn't always hit me. But with this
Mm-hmm.
one, it's sort of in the middle. So I was gonna say 5, but then we started talking. Then we started talking about it, and then I'd say 6, because there is
6.
a deeper meaning and stuff. But it's better than Perfect Blue. Let's be honest. For me, it's better than Perfect Blue. So
I
yeah,
mean, I agree. I agree. But
I just
6
yeah.
for Grave of the Fireflies. A 6.
I'm gonna get shut
Bruh.
out for this one also. Perfect Blue is I ranked that one pretty low, but
I
I don't.
mean,
Well, I don't know. I've had a lot of sadness in my life, so when I see something like this, it just doesn't make me sad, especially
right,
the
but
way
are
they
you ranking
organized
it
the
based
movie.
on how sad it made? Are you ranking it based on how
No,
sad it
I'm
made you, or
basing it on
ranking it based on?
the main thing coming for it is the story and the animation. I really like the story and I really like the animation. Now,
Hmm.
I don't really look into themes too much all the time, but it does push sort of like a theme of like loss of innocence. But that's used in so many movies nowadays that
Yeah, but
it just doesn't
but
hit right. It doesn't hit the same. Like if this was in
no.
1988 when there wasn't so many loss of innocence movies, then I would have probably been okay with it, and then I would have
Well, I
ranked it
think it
probably
does it.
higher. But I've seen
I
so
think it
many
does it in a
movies
realistic
that are
way.
like this.
I think it does it in a fairly kind of realistic, like a very real feeling way, and I think it does it. it's also another thing because it's a different perspective, right? Like most of the time we're watching American or European films about this type of thing, but it's a Japanese from a Japanese point of view in World War II, so it's a unique perspective on something that just so happens to be, I universally relatable. I think so. I think the fact that it's able to breach that gap is a achievement, all of it, all in its own right. So I don't know. I think giving this movie a 6 is like giving The Godfather a 4.
I
So,
wouldn't give The Godfather a 4.
well, I mean, I'm not saying they're even remotely the same movie. I'm just saying it's like giving a great movie, a fantastic movie,
Well,
a low
you're coming
score.
from it. You're coming from it as like a person who's watched and enjoyed so many just different types of animes and stuff. I'm newer to this, so I'm not used to it. I don't
But on the
For
contrary,
animated
on the
characters, I don't
contrary,
feel emotions as much as I would like real life people. I don't just have that feeling all the time. I've
for
been
me, it
trying
doesn't
to
really
get better
matter
at.
because I separate the character from the, like whether it's live action or animated or in a book or whatever. I see them all as the same. So it's not, you know what I mean? It could be in any medium. It's really just how the character themselves is what matters to me, not them being live action or whatever. But I mean, I could see how you feel that way, but I don't know. I
It's just
think
where I'm coming from is I'm not used to watching anime and stuff. So like,
yeah, but I do want to say something though to that point because when you said that, right? On the contrary, this was actually one of the first ones I ever saw, ever. Uh, so it's actually not me coming from the point of view of having seen a bunch of stuff. I watched this movie years ago the first time, and this is actually one of the ones that made me want to watch more. So I don't know.
well, it's
My
the
two
same thing
cents
I
there.
have with Death Note. Is I put Death Note like really high up on my list of like anime and stuff because it's the first thing I've ever watched, anime related.
Yeah,
So
but Death Note is actually good, regardless of that, right?
mhm.
Like Death Note is a good show, regardless. Like, that's a good show to start off with. I feel like me watching this as one of my first doesn't really negatively or positively affect uh, my outlook of it that much, really. Because if I rewatched it after watching a bunch more stuff and I thought it was bad, then I would have been honest and I would have just said I don't like this, But that isn't the case. I keep coming back to it, so I don't know. I don't know.
Well, at the beginning, I did say that I neither hated it or really liked it. So I was like in the middle, which is puts me at like a 5. So if you push that forward a little bit for animation style, because I really like Studio Ghibli animation like a lot. So that 6 sounds pretty good in my terms. So
I mean, that is better than average,
it's way
ranking
better
wise.
than it's like 2 or 3 points better than Perfect Blue.
Hmm.
So
I mean, that's a whole discussion.
hey, you're starting to understand what I kind of like after I review these, so maybe you'll find
Mhm.
one that's like a perfect match for me.
Maybe I will. I don't know. It's obviously this stuff is subjective. So I mean, I can't tell you you're wrong.
Yeah.
It's your feelings are valid for sure. I just I don't know.
Yeah.
I just see a lot in this movie. This is like an all-time classic must see for me. Like I know you really liked Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
hmm
Like speaking of, what would you say? I know this is kind of off
For
topic, but
Full Metal Alchemist, like my
yeah, what
rating on
would your
that,
yeah.
8.5 to 9. I
Okay,
really
all
enjoyed it.
right.
I really enjoyed it. And then Assassination Classroom is, I think, about a 7.5 to 8. It's just
Hmm.
not as good. Like, the characters aren't as memorable. Like for Full
Mm-hmm.
Metal Alchemist, I remember those characters so well. Like the Armstrong family, the big beefy people, and
Yeah.
then you have the Fuhrer. He's
Yeah.
insane, and I really like the how they did the Fuhrer in that one.
Yeah. That
He's
he's one of
cool.
my favorite aspects as well. Yeah. You should check out Monster. I think you'd really like that one. If you like mystery horror type shit.
hmm
I mean, it's not really horror, but it has horror elements. But I think you would really like that one. But
Yeah,
anyway, that's off topic. But so I guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this
yeah.
one, my friend.
So Yeah, our usual thing is movies are subjective. The only way for a person to review a movie is to watch it themselves and judge it for themselves. So that's our usual saying.
Hmm.
We believe that you should watch any movie, whether or not it has 2 stars or whatever, or like
Well, I disagree.
10% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I disagree to some extent. To some extent, I disagree. I think that general consensus is actually something. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to explain this correctly, right? So obviously, you are the judge of you have to be the
Mhm.
own judge of your whatever. But I do think that general consensus says something. You know what I mean? I think that if a lot of people have the same kind of um, positive airings about something, or like if a lot of people or overwhelming amount of people receive something as being great or amazing, I think that usually that there's a correlation with that thing actually being good, at least from my own experience, right? Because there are things that are bad that I like, and then there are things that are good that I like that I would consider good. But so basically, I don't entirely go off of rating. You know what I mean? I don't choose what I watch based on rating. But if something is rated high and I watch it and I really like it, that tends to happen quite a lot. So, and I don't really check the rating until afterward. So, you know what I mean? So, I think that the rating does say something. I think sometimes, I mean, obviously, in the end, they don't really matter. Like, they really don't matter that much. But
Yeah.
I do think that it's an interesting marker for quality. You know what I mean?
Well,
So, I
yeah,
don't know.
when I go to the movies, you know what I do first is I check the ratings on the movies because I want to know
Mm.
whether it people think it's good or not, and whether I should spend my money on it now or just wait for it to come out on Redbox or whatever.
Right, right, right. Like, yeah, sometimes I do that too. Sometimes I do that too. Like with games, especially, I do that.
Video
But
games, especially for me. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. But for example, there are games that I like that are not really that well received. Like there's this fucking Berserk game for the PS4, and objectively speaking, it's not a good game. Like I'll just be honest, it's not a good game. But as a Berserk fan, right, I can fucking play as Guts and kill a bunch of fucking people with the Dragon Slayer, and that's fun to me. So I love that game. You know what I mean? Like it's not a good game. Same thing with Jump Force, right? That game is fucking terrible. That game is not balanced at all. It is so bad, but it's fun to just go on there and beat the shit out of your friends with other anime characters, and it be the most broken, unbalanced shit ever. So you know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
But like with movies, I think actually at some point, when a movie crosses over, um, so like when a movie gets bad enough, I actually think it crosses over into being good. Like unironically, I think it crosses over into being good. So like Neil Breen movies, and a lot of like I would say The Room, but that one's been done to death. Like I mean, it is a really funny bad movie, but it's been kind of played out so much. It's like the Enter Sandman of so bad
It's
it's good movies. You
yeah.
know, it's like that one song that you can never listen to again by your favorite band because it's or you can listen to it. I'm just don't listen to me. I'm fucking stupid. But what I'm saying is it's so overplayed that you don't want to listen to it again. That's kind of how I feel about The Room. It's like I saw it like years and years and years ago, like before it kind of blew up like a lot, and then I thought it was really funny, and then I can't really watch it anymore because things have been memed to death so much. But anyway, I'm getting beside the point. So I
Yeah.
think like when something gets so bad it's like it becomes good in my eyes. Like I would give several Neil Breen movies like a 9 or an 8 to 9 out of 10. Like on an actual scale because they're so terrible that they are some of the best comedies ever made. Um, I don't know. That's just something I wanted to say about ratings. But
Mm-hmm. So, do you want to go into recommendations, or
yeah.
do you have any
Yeah,
other
sure.
last final thoughts before we get into recommendations and what we're going to be talking about next week?
No, I think we kind of said everything really.
Yeah.
Or I said everything at the very least. But
Oh wait, what
I
was it?
do.
I wanted to say something. You were talking about Berserk, and I was like, you know, who would make a good Mortal Kombat character? Guts.
Yeah.
Guts would
Yeah,
make
he
a
actually
really
really
good
would.
Mortal Kombat character.
Yeah, that'd be fucking cool. That'd be really
His
cool.
fatalities would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, his fatalities would be fucking
Cannon
awesome.
fist.
Yeah, yeah. Or just cleaving someone in half with the Dragon Slayer. Yeah, that'd be fucking cool. Um, but yeah, no. For recommendations, I've actually decided that I won't be watching any Quentin Tarantino movies anymore. Um, I like him as a director. I think he's a great director. But and I know. Okay, so this is actually probably a really controversial statement. Not that we're popular enough to have any kind of controversy, but I'm sure this is a very charged topic. But I recently discovered some things about Quentin Tarantino, and no, it's not his foot fetish or anything like that. But I recently discovered some things on Quentin Tarantino that make me not so comfortable with giving him money. So I don't know. I just don't want to. I was gonna recommend a Quentin Tarantino film, but I kind of looked into some stuff, and I no longer like him. Although I do like his movies. But anyway, I don't know. I don't even know why the fuck I mentioned that. It just popped into my head. But
I don't like Quentin Tarantino either. He kind of treats his fans a little.
I mean,
But I
yeah, he
like
is.
his
Don't get me
movies.
wrong.
He
He's an
makes some
asshole.
really good movies. But
Oh well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not that he's an
it's
asshole. I can.
himself. It's just him as a person is
Well,
what I don't like.
yeah, I don't like him as a person either. But I mean, I can separate the art from the artist, right? Like
Yeah.
there are plenty of directors that I think are total dickholes. But so it's something else. It's something else that I don't really. I'm pretty sure if we mention it, it might be a little. I don't know.
Uh,
The YouTube automation system might fuck
we'll
our
talk
shit up.
about it after. We'll talk-
Yeah, we'll talk about it afterwards. But anyway, so I'm gonna recommend Double Down by Neil Breen, and that will be my recommendation for next week as well.
Neil Breen. So I had a couple for this week. I definitely recommend. We've talked about Assassination Classroom on the podcast so far, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Do not watch the original one, but if you want to watch both of them, start out with Full Metal Alchemist and then move to Brotherhood because you're not going to want to go
Correction,
back. You're not going to want to go back
correction,
and watch Full Metal
correction,
Alchemist.
correction.
What?
You should watch. You should watch the first one.
I'm not going to go back and watch
Just
the first one after I watch Brotherhood. Brotherhood is
no, no,
so
no. Look,
much
look, look. It's a
better.
completely different story. It's a completely different story. I know. I agree. I agree. It's so much better. But
It's hard
the
to go
first one
back
is a
and watch
completely
it.
different story. Like after the first couple episodes, it becomes its own like completely different story. So I think that you should, but watch Brotherhood first. That's my opinion.
I am different with that one. Different with that statement. I say watch the original one first and then watch Brotherhood. That way you end on a high note rather than a low note.
Oh, uh-oh. You probably just pissed off all the
I've done it
original Fullmetal
already. I've done
Alchemist
it
fans.
already. I've done it already. With Perfect Blue, I've done it with that, and then I've probably done it with
Yeah,
our review of Grave of the Fireflies. But hey, movies and stuff,
it's
they're
okay.
subjective. But my
Yeah.
recommendation for this week is I watched the movie Freaky, the one with Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton. And if you really like horror, that one's one for you because there's just so many Easter eggs and stuff throughout the movie that it's just really fun to watch. It's like a Freaky
Mm.
Friday mixed with like a Friday 13th. So,
Hmm. Okay.
and
Cool.
then for next week's movie, we'll be talking about I think either Les Mis or Fiddler on the Roof. We'll talk about it. I think it's leaning more towards Les Mis because I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the better one. It's not as long for us to watch, so Fiddler on the Roof gets pretty long at some points. So I think we might be doing Les Mis over Fiddler on the Roof, but at some point we'll go back and do Fiddler on the Roof. So
Yeah.
Les Mis for next week, and let's go ahead and end it, I guess. Any final
Yeah.
statements or anything? I already have all the
Um.
anime people hating me, so
Nah, there are some that actually agree with you. Really, there's some that agree. There's a yeah, but
okay.
no, yeah, I'm good.
At least I'm on your good side. Let's go. Let's say, or on half and half with you. Let's say
Yeah.
bye, Ty.
See ya. Talk.